It's here. This is my 2021 Ford Bronco Badlands 2-door in Cyber Orange. I've been waiting forever. It's been 16 months. It's quite literally 503 days for it to show up here in Atlanta. Took me an extra day to be able to take it home. So 504 days from clicking reserve, I want this 2-door Badlands, to actually having it in my possession and officially under my ownership. And I absolutely love this thing. So oddly enough, it actually had more miles on it than I would have expected, like 36 miles when I got it. I was able to pull it from where it got dropped off from the trailer directly into their service bay. So I was the first person to move it at the dealership, so I know exactly what it came with. But yeah, so that was kind of a lot of miles, I thought, but doesn't change the fact that the rest of these 540 miles or whatever on the vehicle so far are mine, and hopefully hundreds of thousands more will be mine as well. I'm really excited about this vehicle. It's a forever car for me. That's the hope. I wanted something that I just could fall in love with and continue to enjoy, so I went with the 2-door. Obviously the 4-door is available, it's more practical. If you're not familiar with the new Bronco, in 2021 the nameplate returned for Ford, that is Bronco, but they actually did it with 2 different vehicles. You might have seen something with Bronco on it that looked a lot smaller than this. They call that the Bronco Sport. It's based on the Escape chassis, whereas this is sharing a chassis with the Ford Ranger upcoming, and it's also built on the assembly line of the current Ford Ranger in Michigan. So this vehicle is really something special. It's really the first legitimate competition for the Jeep Wrangler in many, many years. So when you say compete with Jeep Wrangler, you have to be incredibly off-road capable. You got to be able to remove the top, you got to be able to remove the doors, and this does all of those things. In fact, it's in a lot of ways a superior vehicle, as it should be, because they went out and talked to current Wrangler owners and said, what do you like? What would you like improved? And they built that vehicle with a serious nod towards what was Bronco and how do we bring that back respectfully. And I think they've done a great job. There's a lot of little Easter eggs and things that you'll see in Wranglers and other vehicles in the category that I think make it really special and hark back and tell you a little bit about the lineage. It's just awesome. They've clearly thought everything through on this vehicle. But before we go too deep, I'm going to go ahead and say not everything's perfect about it. I think it's a fantastic daily driver. I absolutely think anybody who knows what it is and is interested should absolutely go buy one. The delays are still really bad, so there's a lot to consider here. But I will say it's a fantastic vehicle. I'll show you the one design flaw that I'm pretty disappointed in, another minor one, and a couple of build quality issues that I've run into so far. In addition, I'm going to show you the stuff that I love. There's a lot of really great tech in here, a lot of off-road and well thought out things, and really a lot to cover. So yeah, let's check it out. Alright, so let's go over some basics. The front end, you can tell it's already getting serious. We've got an all-steel bumper, but without losing all the tech. You see we've already got prox sensors and everything like that. Massive front attachment points that are prepared for shackles. I added these shackles, just a quick Amazon find. They call this the modular bumper because, as you can see, there's a number of bolts on here designed to be taken off and add accessories, things like the factory supported winch kit, bull bar, everything in that kind of direction. It's also modular in the way that the wings can be taken off for more approach angle. So they thought a lot of that kind of stuff through and enabled all of that through this bumper. The names for the bumpers are pretty confusing. They've got all kinds of things from like the capable bumper and this one being the modular. And of course that changes a little bit going into 22. I think that's the introduction of the capable bumper. The grille is
the beautiful centerpiece of the front of the car. And in the Badlands and Wild Track trim, you get this design with many holes here. With the Badlands, it's in, what do they call it? It's this gray color, carbonized gray. And then in the Wild Track, it comes black. It's never body color. If you see that, that's been done aftermarket. There are other ones that are black and carbonized gray, but in different designs, and that's kind of your first giveaway for each of these trims. On the front corners here, you've got the trail sights. They're actually designed so that you can see the corner of the vehicle. That's why they call them trail sights, but they're load rated. There's a label right on the side here, max load 150 pounds. So idea being you can actually add some kind of structural thing to it. Limb risers is going to be a really popular option. You can attach directly there, go to your roof rack, and that would deflect any kind of limbs that would come after your windshield. There was a concept, the fishing concept or something like that, that actually had fishing rods hanging off there. They had a bar that went across. So the idea is just open it up for whatever you can think of, and they want to build it to be modular and adaptable to those kinds of modifications. On the sides, we've got our removable fender flares. These are really cool. So they come in two sizes. This size being what you get in all vehicles except those with Sasquatch. So if you're equipped with a 35-inch tires, they give you a wider one that actually clears that wider tire. I love the look of the narrower fenders, even on the 35-inch equipped vehicles. But it's really cool because they give you this quarter-turn fastener that you can unlatch and pop these off without tools. So if you pull up to the trail, decide you no longer want those flares on there just for articulation and the roughness you're going to go through, you can just remove them. There's also an available delete kit that just makes it flush, which is a really slick add-on and something I do plan to get from 4-Wheel Parts. Moving on back, you can see down on the side skirts, we've actually got these awesome rock rails, and they're really structural. If we look underneath, you can see that they're attached to the body in a lot of ways, in a very structural way. It's not direct to frame, so we'll have to see how durable they actually are, but I believe they'd be pretty durable. They're not just appearance screwed on there or anything like that. Again, they're not meant to be a step into the vehicle. They're certainly strong enough, but they don't give you enough gap to actually get your toe in there. That's not really the intention. The intention there is to protect the body from rocks and whatever you might try to tip the vehicle onto. The fuel door is pretty neat. Right in here you can see they've added this little Easter egg. You've got each of the generations of Bronco in there, which is really fun. No gas cap, real simple. You just have just a flap that keeps environment out, and they give you, as part of the kit, a funnel attachment that you can add to there if you're refilling from a gas jug and not actually at a pump. Back to the back of the vehicle, we've got a full-size spare, of course, like you'd need with any off-road vehicle. It's affixed to the back and leaves room for your rear camera. So the full 360 camera system is one of my favorite things about this vehicle, or at least in this trim. It's really cool, and it shows you everything as if you were a bird's eye view on the top of the vehicle, and that's just killer for going through a drive-through or trying to park it at a parking spot, and then of course especially when you're trying to manipulate it over difficult terrain like it's designed to do. Rear bumper looks like it might be entirely plastic. You can feel that it's plastic up top, but still pretty solid. But the core of it is actually metal. So you've got a metal bumper with some plastic vanity guards around it. Pretty neat design. Makes sense. Seems like it's going to be durable, but maybe easy to repair if you were to damage some of the high-use areas that have plastic. The top, they called it mold in color. MIC top, M-I-C, that stands for mold in color. The theory being, if you scratch under the surface, it's the same color throughout. That should mean that this gray is not going to expose like a white or some off color that would be really obvious if you scratched it up a little bit, because that's expected to happen. You are intended to take this off-road, and that comes with its costs of actually doing some damage to the vehicle. On the rear side, there's a flip-up glass panel. I'm gonna open this. I got all kinds of stuff in here, so please ignore it. But the panel flips up. It can only flip up when the gate is almost entirely open. I'll show you what I mean by that. If you have the tailgate open slightly like this, which you'll be tempted to do because there's a lot of resistance in this shock, you'll notice that seal is going to block you. So not a big deal, just something to be aware of. The nice thing is this swing out gate does stop wherever you let go of it after you get to, about 50 degrees. Once you've opened at 50 degrees, you can stop it anywhere there up to 90, which I think is really slick. Everything about the vehicle feels incredibly durable, but some of the capacities really are a compromise in this vehicle. The towing capacity is the one everybody talks about. 3,500 pounds is not much. But there's another one, and that is the roof rack. So the roof rack mounts to the removable hard top in this slot back here, and then on the front it actually mounts to the vehicle. It mounts right here where it says accessory ready. So that front part mounts it, and then you mount it on the rear. And the nice thing about that is you can remove the front top panels with the roof rack in place. I think that's a really killer design. But the capacity is pretty low. I'm going to go back and double check the numbers, but you've got two capacities to deal with. One is your static and one's your dynamic. Your dynamic is how much weight can you keep on there while you drive the vehicle. Static is how much weight can you put it on there when the vehicle's parked. So vehicle parked, there's plenty of weight there's plenty of durability to handle a rooftop tent and maybe two people in there, but it does get close. I think it's about 500 pounds. Dynamic is much lower. It's like 100, 110. And the problem there is if you account for the rack itself, you quickly run out of space. So a rack, a top, some of those tops are very heavy by themselves, and you're going to overload that dynamic capacity off the bat. So something to consider. Right now, I'm trying to determine what I'm going to do. I did not end up getting the factory roof rack with my build, so I'm still trying to figure out if I can get that affordably after the fact. If not, I'm going to have to look in the aftermarket for a solution. And then, do I even want to try to put anything up there? With that low of a dynamic load limit, it'd be easy to push over it. But I got to balance that against the towing capacity, because my alternative is probably to put it on my vehicle trailer or some other kind of trailer, and that's going to be really close to over limit too. The good news is I started with a really lightweight aluminum trailer, so I'm hoping that gives me enough headroom to fit my race car and my gear, and maybe I can do some clever things like add a rooftop tent. The hitch is really durable. I got the factory equipped hitch, so it comes with a wiring kit and everything else like that. It's ready to go. The doors are so cool on this vehicle. The doors are frameless, which is unique to the Bronco versus the Wrangler, and even more unique is the fact that the mirrors stay attached to the vehicle. I think this is really cool, and they made a lot of use of that. So a lot of the tech that you typically have in the door, a lot of the wires that run to it are just to support the things that are in the mirror. In this case, that doesn't need to happen, because your lights, your camera, your blind spot alert, all of that kind of stuff is run to your mirror that doesn't need to leave the vehicle. All you're running into the door itself is your locks and your power windows. So that really simplifies things. There is still an electrical connector for that, of course, but all that is part of the removal system. The vehicle itself comes with a kit, comes with the tools you need to remove the door. As an option, you can buy bags for the doors. I did buy those factory bags. And then it even gives you a little an insert that helps you guide the door back into position. It also gives you some protectors to keep from damaging the door as you remove it, and keep from damaging the fender as well. So with the Badlands trim, again, one of the first ways you can identify it is by the badge. Right here on the side it says Badlands. If you get the Sasquatch package, it actually says the word Sasquatch underneath it. I did not, and so you don't see it there. Of course, a lot of people have removed that sticker, and in place I've seen like a script Bronco logo that people have added. So you may not be able to see that right away and identify a vehicle. So like I said about the grille, that's probably a more reliable way to identify a Bronco's trim. Now, again, with the Badlands version, what you get are these 33-inch tires. You get what they call Badlands suspension, which is the Bilstein shocks, which is the same as what you'd get in Sasquatch, but they're a little shorter. So 4/10 of an inch is the difference that we've determined, shorter on the Badlands versus the Sasquatch, which isn't a whole lot. I would expect that you could put a set of 35s on this configuration of the Bronco with no additional changes, and you probably won't get any severe rubbing. You might get a little bit in the fender liner or something like that. It is something I'd like to try out. I expect it to go easily. Now, one of my favorite things is this huge 12-inch display that comes in the High and Lux packages on the vehicle. It's great for including CarPlay, which is wireless, so actually it's right in my phone right now. I love that. The fact that you've got all your feature controls in here and just this huge, beautiful display is great. Your off-road features are going to be up here and these rubberized, weatherized buttons. You've got sway bar disconnect, front and rear lockers, and then your traction control and hazards. That's awesome. Now, this is really cool. Again, accessory ready, where you see that, then you know they've thought it through about accessories. I just put this plug that it came with in there, but this is 1/4 threads right here, so you can install something up here. Their intention is something like a GoPro, or maybe even a rail that you can attach more things. They announced this bring your own device rail under release, and then it just never actually came out. There's a couple of manufacturers right now that are working on building those. It's only got the one position to hold it down. The intention is that you kind of rest something in these spots and you put a little tension in there to keep it in place. But up here is intended to be, you know, attachment for devices like that. With the Lux package, you get power up here as well, so there's USB-A, USB-C available to charge your devices that are up on the rail or up here. And then of course you've got it standard down in this area right here, again USB-A and USB-C. That's pretty cool. But take it a step further with the Lux package, and you have a Qi charger port right here in the center. It's a great spot to just drop your phone. I find that if you've got a case on your phone, it's not entirely reliable. But if you take your phone out of its case, it works great. I'm sure there are cases that are better, cases that are worse. I'm using the, I have an iPhone 13 Pro, and I put the Apple case on it, and it's had unreliable results. But plenty of places to plug in, so that's not a deal breaker in my opinion. Another great feature in the interior is the heated seats. You know, heated seats are not a new concept, but I think they work particularly well in this vehicle. The first notch of it, just the lowest setting, is usually the perfect amount. When I'm really cold, I knock it up a little bit more, and by that third mark, I feel like I'm sitting on a bench that's been a metal bench that's been sitting in the sun all day. So definitely does the trick. It's a great feature. There's also a heated steering wheel. I will say though, it is it's pretty mild. Doesn't do a whole lot, but if you're holding on to it the whole time, it does build up some heat over time, and it does a great job. So the 7-speed manual, I can't ignore that. That's a pretty cool thing. Not a lot of vehicles on the market today available manual at all, and certainly haven't seen a 7-speed manual before with a crawl gear. So technically you could say it's a 6-speed manual, and then it's got this crawl gear. The way that works is while you're in neutral, there's a collar that you pull up. That collar is how you get into reverse. Of course, that brings up those beautiful cameras when you're in the reverse. And then if you go straight down from reverse, that puts you in the crawl gear. So with that and 4 low, you'll see the vehicle get to a 95-to-1 final drive ratio, which is insane. Basically, to go 5 miles an hour, you're sitting at 5,000 RPM. So obviously, the point is not to be banging off the rev limiter going just a few miles an hour. The point is you're going to get unlimited torque, or so it will seem, when you've got that kind of gearing advantage working for you. So pretty neat feature there. I love that. First through 6 works great. Now, There's quite a lot of tech in here. What you might notice when you're driving is that there's a gear indicator, and I'm switching it into neutral right now and it goes away, and I go into the next gear and it goes 2. So that may not seem too crazy to you, but what's interesting is usually those gear selector indicators are doing some math. A lot of times they say, okay, well, if you're driving along and the RPM is such and the speed is such, you must be in this gear by some simple math. But in this case, it's not doing that. It's actually got a sensor, because how would you know if you're not moving what gear you're in? So those sensors are in place, and I think the intention there is because this vehicle has auto start stop, which is disableable by a button right here. The auto start stop feature needs to know if you're in gear, because once the engine shuts off, like you see me doing right now, you can select a different gear. So if you come to a stop, neutral, clutch out, with the vehicle on, the vehicle's not on right now, with the engine will shut off in a lot of cases. And you could just put it back into gear. It'd be a problem if it decided it needed to turn back on and start rolling forward. So I think that's exactly why they have sensors in place to know which gear you're in, even if you're not moving. So pretty neat tech there. What I've discovered that's really cool is another feature of the Lux package, and that is the adaptive cruise control. I believe right in here is your radar that's relevant for that. So it's going to determine your distance to the vehicle in front of you, allow you to set a cruise distance and continue to drive. Now, what I wouldn't have anticipated is that this is well designed for manual transmissions, because typically those tech features also come along with a vehicle that's equipped with an automatic transmission. But it's true, you can get it with a manual transmission, and interestingly, it doesn't freak out when you clutch in and choose another gear. So you can be cruising around and trying to maintain speed, and if you decide to shift down while it's slowing you down behind traffic with that adaptive cruise on, it doesn't mind. You go 5th to 4th, and it picks up where it left off. I might be saying that in a confusing way, but the point is, if you're using that adaptive cruise control and you're shifting, it doesn't mind. It doesn't disable it. So I think that's really cool. Let's talk for a moment about these seats. I love this material. They call this the marine grade vinyl. It's got a nice texture to it. It's very slick. I don't know if you can tell just by looking at it, but it's like a nice slick material. Doesn't feel like a glossy bar stool or something like that. Maybe it will with a lot of wear and oils from your skin or whatever, but in new condition, it's nice. It's a nice finish. I believe this orange stitching is because of the Badlands trim. I'd love to say that they tied it into the exterior color, but I think I just got lucky that my cyber orange matches well with the Badlands trim. So I love these seats. Again, they're equipped heated. What they're not equipped with all this tech, you'd think, oh, well, clearly you got power seats. You don't. So these are manual seats, and I think the intention there is to not include an electric motor down in the floor, which I really want to talk about. So I've got the rubber floor mats from Ford here, but if I remove the mat, you'll see it's also rubber under here. Technically, it's called TPU, and if you're into the 3D printing world, that's a common material used for flexible items. And yeah, it's a great rugged, weatherized solution for the whole floor. There's no carpet in this trim. And then down here, you've got a quarter turn to be able to open a drain plug. I really like that option. They're under all 4 seating positions. So you can go in there and, yeah, I'm struggling because I'm trying to do this with one hand. You can drain out and just kind of rinse out the interior. And that's why they opted against the electric motor, or at least that is what they might claim. Maybe it's just cost savings. Either way, I don't mind. It's easy enough for me to pull this latch and adjust my seat position. I never complain about that sort of thing. Right here is a height adjustment, and then this is going to be your back. So you can pump this up and down as is typical to kind of change the height of the seat. I usually sit really low in cars, but in the truck it's kind of nice to sit up, and you've got that flexibility here. If you want to get to the back, it's not too bad. You just grab this. That tilts it forward, and if you push it all the way forward, it unlatches the lower position, allows you to slide the seat forward. Again, you can see my rubber floor mats down there and the TPU floor. Here in the back seat, you can see there's a lot of room for gear. Ignore my mess, but the seats fold flat, completely flat, if you pull the seat bottom up. So you can see right here, it's actually quite a lot of room for the back seat. I don't have the headrest up right now, but there's a lot of room back here. I tried it out. I'm not a particularly tall guy, but I was able to sit back here, put the driver's seat, I sat in that one, I put the driver's seat all the way back, and I still had like 4 or 5 inches from my knee to the seat. So lots of room. I've put 6 foot tall plus people back there, and they're nice and comfortable. It's legitimately built for adults to be able to ride in this vehicle, even in the 2-door. I think they did an excellent job. So there's a cloth strap back here. If you pull it, that pulls the seat back forward, and you can fold it with the seat bottom in place, and it comes in at an angle. If you want it to go flat like this, you simply grab the seat and go like that. And that, you know, that makes a lot of sense, right? You can get it really flat. This is kind of out of the way because the seat's going to be here anyways. Here's the thing that I really don't care for. Right here, you can see this is where they have 2 ports. And you can't even see them, and that's kind of the point I'm trying to make. Check this out. There is right here, your 110 AC outlet, and then right here you got another USB-A, USB-C combination. As much as I love that option, the fact that folding the seat down blocks those from you just seems like a miss. I feel like they could have designed it in such a way where you could still access that with the seats folded flat, because I feel like when I want that accessory, it's because I'm going to have something mounted behind the seats that needs to be powered, or mounted maybe on the seat back. And the fact that folding the seats down means you can no longer use the AC power outlet, I think is a real miss. I think they should have thought that through better. So I will go back to the back and show you the mess that I call my back area. So that's not your only power option, thankfully, in the back. So you do have a 12-volt outlet right here, your standard accessory style, and there's a nice light back here. So they did think something through there. Also, I believe some of your aux switches are wired back here. I'll go and talk about those in a minute. These, while they look like an electrical connector, are not. They're actually empty in there. What these are is they're dead spots for your rear top attachment. So if you either have a hard top, or if you've got the pre-wire kit for your hard top, then you probably have these here. And the intention is that these cables, when they're disconnected from the hard top, can just plug in right there and not be flopping around in the back of your vehicle. I think that's another really well thought out little addition. So again, the hardtop is removable. I've not tried the rear sections yet, only the front. You can see there's a few bolts to do that, and the instructions are available online on how to do that. One thing I really love about the Bronco with the hardtop is that the top is incredibly strong. So a lot of hardtops like this with a lot of space up here usually won't have the durability that someone could stand right in the middle, but that's not the case here. You can absolutely stand on the middle. I've tried jumping up and down in the center of the top, and it supports it just fine. There's not even a cross beam in this vehicle. Wranglers typically do, but that was a point that Ford made with the Bronco, is they wanted to make sure that it was a completely open air experience when the top is removed. So it's amazing. They made the hardtop incredibly strong, and I'm thankful for that. I found that the top of the vehicle is somewhere that I like to sit. It's a great solution for watching a race, or you're at some kind of event where your vehicle is close to whatever's going on. You can get right up here and you can just sit up here and watch. And I think that's a great thing with such like a modular, capable vehicle like this. Go park wherever, be able to sit on top and, have a better view of whatever you're looking at. What else don't I love? Well, right now the key is on. It's a key that you can keep in your pocket. I have it in my pocket. Now what happens when I shut the door out at a campsite? That horn's incredibly loud, and it comes right out of the front, which in my case is typically pointing towards my neighbors in my apartment. So if I don't think to shut the car all the way off, before I hop out and shut the door, then I end up disrupting people, especially at night. I'm really worried about when I get to a campsite and I'm doing a lot of shuffling in and out, what that's gonna look like. And I don't know. I couldn't find it in the menu. It's possible it's in the menu. If you guys know, please let me know. But maybe with a Ford scan tool or something, that's an option I could disable. Another thing I don't entirely love on this vehicle is the tachometer. They chose to make this little vertical bar your tach, and while that's okay, I guess, that you've got this massive speedometer here, and I'd rather that have been the tach. Now the speedometer here I actually quite like. So you get 0 in the corner, that shows your miles per hour, and that's pretty easy to read. It's certainly in view. A couple other things you'll notice here is the trip meter is available in this screen. I really like that it counts time, but I'm a little confused that the time is just when you're either like accessory on or on. It's not going to relate to the engine running, which I kind of feel like would be a better use of that timer, but it's still there. Don't pay too much attention to that fuel economy, because I've only driven 8 miles. That reading's not going to be very accurate until I've driven further. I am seeing about 17 miles per gallon. I can get as good as about 20 when I'm driving just on the highway. But with that in mind, that's one of the things I'm least impressed with this vehicle, is because the 2-door comes with such a small gas tank. It's about 16 gallons. With that fuel economy, you're lucky to get over 300 miles. You'll just barely get 300 miles of range. Not the end of the world. I knew it wasn't going to get great fuel economy, but it does mean I have to stop at the pump quite often. Not the end of the world. Again, it's something I adapt for, but just something to be aware of. You can see I've gotten through my break-in miles here. I'm at 1,200 miles. The manual recommends break-in for 1,000 miles, not to exceed, not to go too high in speed. I interpret that as keeping RPMs low, stay away from red line, as well as no towing and other sorts of things like that. I've avoided towing so far. So I will start playing around with towing. That's something I look forward to doing. And now that I'm past break-in, I'll have that opportunity. More about towing. So there is a towing portion of the menu. There's only one thing in here: trailer sway control. You can turn it on or off. Information just says reduce trailer sway when towing. There's not a whole lot of information in here about towing. There is, however, a connection checklist which goes through, and you say you've got a conventional hookup, and it's got a lot of fun imagery that tells you, hey, don't forget your safety chains. Oh, and your breakaway switch. Oh, don't forget you need to make sure your lights work and that your tongue jack's not dragging. And it's kind of cool. It's neat that they put all this together. But what I was hoping for was some of the features that you see in F-150 and other Ford models, such as being able to store each trailer and keep mileage, kind of like an odometer for each of your trailers. And it'd be great to have some kind of trailer brake controller that you could modulate manually if you needed to test the brakes or slow the trailer down independent of the vehicle. None of that's available, nor is there a place for it. Ford does approve a trailer brake controller, which I do intend to buy. It comes with a little rotary switch, but basically you're instructed to drill somewhere to install it. Maybe I can put it here. Maybe I can put it in this spot here. I don't like the ones that are just wood screwed to the bottom here. I think that's just cheap and ridiculous. For a nice vehicle like this, I'd like to have a OEM looking finish. Not sure how I'm going to pull that off, but that's on my to-do list. So again, a lot of people will be like, hey, just don't buy a Bronco if you want to tow. I get that, but for me, I want to have my Bronco and I want to have my race car together. So I'm going to make it work, and I'll report back. Keep your comments to yourself, I guess, or throw them in the YouTube comment section so that we can start a fight and I'll get more views. That works too. Zone lighting is pretty neat. So if you turn this on, this mode gives you control of individual lights on the vehicle. You can light up from the mirrors. You can light up those puddle lights. You can light up these are actually your reverse lights, funny enough. It's saying that I can't shut off the front ones because I have it in this mode. It says to use zone lighting to control these lights, turn off the following physical switches. And this is the physical switch they're talking about right here. So if I rotate it to off, I recover that option to independently control it from this menu. But this is pretty cool. It lets you really like light up your campsite per se when you come to park, and then you've got individual control. So I haven't played with a lot of this. You've got enable auto lamp override, which I think would just keep you from seeing that error when that's on there, and then you can control it here. There's also kind of a definition of what's going on in zone lighting. So that's pretty neat. I think that's something I'll use a lot more. I'm really interested to see if I can build in some accessories that work with that zone lighting, because I think that's a really cool concept. So talking about accessory lighting, got to talk about these auxiliary switches. This is really cool. This is an option. I think you can add it to just about any trim. It's got those real mechanical feeling paddle switches, which are really cool. Now, you're like, okay, so what do they do? Well, these are run in individual wires, and they go under the hood to the fuse box. My understanding is they go individually to the fuse box. You attach them to the appropriate fuse that you'd like, and then there's other wires that are routed throughout the vehicle. So you can say, for instance, aux 1 is going to be my light bar up top, aux 2 is going to be like my fogs down in the bumper, aux 3 is going to be rear lights and stuff like that, and you can configure those however you'd like. So that's a really cool, neat thinking thing from Ford. These, I think they call them upfitter switches. Like, you're gonna add stuff. They know you're gonna add stuff. Why not pre-wire them and give you switches that maintain that OEM finish? I really like that touch. Looking up here on the top is removable on each side. The Freedom panels on the Wrangler are the same idea. There's this big, paddle style latch here, and then these just rotated latches in the other 3 positions each. That's really neat. Early 21 models, or maybe all 21 models, got this sound editing headliner as a freebie option. And I've taken that to be, okay, well, this is how I'm gonna display my patches. I got an early Bronco Nation number, kind of proud of that. And then their refill kit gave me this this year, so hopefully those will start stacking up. But yeah, I certainly intend to go to some national parks and collect patches there and display where I've been up here. I think that's a really cool addition. Check out Bad Bronco if you're not familiar. It's Bad X Bronco on Instagram. He's got a lot of cool merchandise. He's run an Instagram account ever since the release of the Bronco, and we've worked together and become fast friends. He's a great guy, great product. He also has those physical badges on the back, which I've seen a lot of people enjoying. I really love this patch. So yeah, I didn't actually realize I was going to get the door openers. I don't know what trims come with that. Maybe it's all of them. I've not attempted to use it or anything like that. I live in an apartment. I don't need it. The audio system in this vehicle is actually pretty solid. It's the Bang & Olufsen that comes, I believe, in the Luxe package. You get the speakers up here, which I think are it, but they reflect off the windshield and give you a lot of audio up here. It does play pretty loud. Quality is fine. Doors off, wind going. You can get it loud enough to really enjoy your music. Audiophile, I don't know. I don't know if you can be in an openable box and call yourself, and have the expectations, let's say, of audiophile level audio. But another part of that equation is the rear audio, and that's these pods up here. I think most of your bass comes from these. It's pretty loud. I've noticed before when I've got music playing up front, I'm enjoying it, and I walk around to the back, I'm like, wow, the bass is really loud in the back. So, be respectful of your passengers. If you got rear passengers, you might want to adjust the fade in your audio settings to not be a nuisance. The tops are the front panels, like I said, just those few latches. They're pretty easy to deal with, and they're a lot of fun. I just drove around on the highway for the first time with the front tops removed and the windows down. Genuinely, I think it's like perfectly engineered. There's no weird buffeting or anything like that. I was really impressed. That's clearly a critical thing here, because that's an intended use, a very much an intended use with this vehicle. I'm glad they put the effort and engineering in to make that work. If you're curious about some of the exact design, like why does the window hitch down this small amount, and why does the top go to where it does and everything like that, I bet you that has to do with how they engineered it to be quiet as it is with the top open. Also, the split point for the tops here to the back, I'm sure all of that is engineered with that in mind. So excellent work there. So there is one issue with my particular Bronco. So what I noticed when I got it in is this line on the hood falls and then comes back up ever so slightly. You know, you can kind of see it right here. The reflections do one of these. And then you could see on the other side that it's pretty much straight as an arrow back. Not so much here. This isn't the best angle to show it off, but you can kind of see there. So a little bit of a dip, and I think the hood's just not hung right, and then I think it pushes up against the rubber cushion down here, and it's got a small bend to it. You know, build quality on these are going to take some dialing in because it's a brand new vehicle. I am not sure I'm even going to get that addressed. I'm worried that they could, you know, the dealership offered to fix it, but I'm worried we're going to be chasing our tail and maybe not making it better. So that may not be something I deal with. But here I will deal with this. The cowl, you know, is not seated well here. And where that really becomes a problem is down the center. You can see it's gotten pinched. And it was that way when I picked it up. So that little pinch there catches the hood every time you attempt to open it. And it may seem minor, but it's just going to tear itself apart. You can see that there's little tabs under it that should be sliding in and snapping. They don't snap. So I can flex it up. Anyways, it's in the way. It's a damaged part at this point, and it's just not mounted right. So this is going to need to get resolved. My dealer was very happy to take care of this for me. They put one on order. They told me they'd notify me when the part's going to be in, and they'll have a rental vehicle for me. So I've got no complaints. You know, that doesn't reduce my ability to enjoy the vehicle in the meantime. I'm happy to wait however long it takes for them to be able to solve that for me. It's not a deal breaker. People are so worried about these things having all kinds of problems. In my opinion, something small like that is just not worth being upset about. It's gonna get resolved. I'm just really happy that I finally got my vehicle in my possession. And then the door comes out a little wide for this part. Back around for comparison. The door lines up perfectly for this one. So little details like that are less than perfect. I just don't see the reason to complain. This is such an amazing vehicle. If it performs off-road and is enjoyable to drive, you know what's the big deal? I get it. It's not the cheapest vehicle, but it's incredible. The capability that they make available at this price point and the capability they make available at this volume. It's gonna be really exciting to see tons of these on the road. Lots of aftermarket suppliers supporting the platform, and the great community that already exists around Bronco and just off-road in general, hopefully will open their arms to this platform. I'm really excited about that. All right, let's take a look underneath the Bronco. This is my first time getting up on the lift. We'll take a look at all the durability they built in and showcase kind of what they did to make it specifically off-road capable and durable to take on the trails. So this is the front steel bash plate. Weighs about 20 pounds, just removed it along with the one that covers the oil filter. Weighs about 10 pounds. When you do that, you expose all this space underneath the vehicle. There's these two bosses that don't seem to be utilized on my 2.3 liter Badlands trim. You can see the intercooler right here and the massive piping that runs to it. Lots of space up in front of the engine here. Most of the hardware is in place. You've got your alignment adjusters here, lots of big bolts. These big bolts run all the way through and hold the steering rack in place. I believe that's what's going on here. No, I'm sorry. This is actually holding the assembly for the axles. So kind of your front axle here. Your steering box is available, or your steering rack is visible right here under this secondary panel, and this is where you can get to your oil drain plug. Oil drain plug under the engine is very easy to get to, lots of space there. What there's not a lot of space around is the oil filter. Let's see, where can I get to where you can see that? There it is. Oil filter's way up here. It's a little bit of a stretch to reach it. The good news is, if you see right there underneath it, they have a plastic kind of drain to send the oil in a predictable place. And I was over here wondering, what's this flimsy little protector? It's not a protector, this is just the continuation of that oil drain. So in theory, the oil goes just down there and not all over everything, but you know, that's theory. We'll see how it actually works. Moving back, another really thick material bash plate. You can see this stuff's really thick. I don't have a micrometer on me, otherwise I'd tell you how thick. This is welded to this bar. This is a structural support that goes to the sway bar mount, and it protects all of the sway bar, which is a lot more complicated in this vehicle because this guy right here is your electronic disconnecting sway bar. Remember, this can be done under a load. Clearly it's hydraulic, or well, no, there's some hydraulic stuff running around it. Nope, to it. Yeah, don't know exactly how it works. Looks like it's a wet system of some sort. You can see the front drive shaft runs back to the transfer case. Lots of real space age looking material right around the exhaust as it routes from the passenger side to the driver's side to work its way back. You can see all of the cable shifter assembly is exposed right here. It's real easy to just move it. This section is normally open, but pretty far away from any kind of incoming rocks or anything like that, because you've got your strong bash plate ahead of it and a structural crossbeam behind it. Next plate here protects the transfer case itself. So here's the transfer case. You can see here, it's all still shiny and perfect. Won't be like that for long. Exhaust is routed back on the driver's side. Transfer case right here, big boss with you know, an exposed bolt spot here that's unused in my vehicle. I just tried out the bolt from all of the bash plates, all these standard bolts here. If I take one of these guys, it is the same thread, so it'd be easy to look up. I think it'd be kind of cool to use this spot as, who knows, maybe a GoPro mount. It would be real protected back here, and it would give you a cool view into the articulation of the rear suspension. So moving further back, massive boxed in support for the drive shaft. So if you were to somehow get some structural thing up here where it could potentially impact the drive shaft, hopefully you'd be protected right here. The fuel tank has a lot of metal support underneath it, or not support, but just armor. So you've got some armor under the gas tank, armor around the drive shaft, and the exhaust is fairly exposed, but it's all pretty deep in there. Remember, fully boxed in frame, and that's true for all the crossbars as well. It's all really durable stuff, all the way down to your big track bar in the back. I believe that's what you call it. Goes back to your drive shaft. Pretty neat. Everything looks really heavy duty back here. The front of the shock assembly here has a plastic or rubber cover over the remote reservoirs because they're forward facing. I guess they're going to come to the little rocks and things first, whereas you'll notice on the front the remote reservoirs are kind of in the middle here, and I guess they deem them somewhat protected, or at least secondary to your to your steering rack, which would be the worst condition, but it's also blocked by your lower wishbone of the front suspension. So that's something to note that's a little different on the front. Looking on the rear here, remember you've got an electronic parking brake, so there's a lot of electrical wires coming back for that sort of thing. Obviously hydraulic lines back here to run the brakes. And then another thing I noticed is there's one more hose that's attached right here. This goes into the housing that captures the axle and runs way up. I think I traced it all the way to here in the fender liner, and I'm not sure where it goes next, but I believe that to be the axle breather. So if you get submerged, fully submerged, you want to keep water, of course, out of your rear axle and differential. So your diff breather at least goes as far as the fender liner up there. This vehicle's rated with a 33.5-inch wading depth. So I'm sure that's part of that calculation, is how far up that diff breather is. Be interesting to know where it terminates. It's got to get some fresh air for pressure changes. So I'm guessing that is probably up maybe into the fuel door or something like that, which is pretty high up. Couldn't quite find from underneath where that might be for the front axle or for the transmission, front diff, anything like that. But I'm sure there's one as well, and it's probably to a similar elevation. Lots of covers for big electronic things. Again, this is probably the electronic parking brake. The boxed frame continues all the way to the back, and you can see these big bolts here. These rings on the back are not for show. They're clearly connected to a structural part of the vehicle. You can see the body on frame, this big rubber bushing. There's the attachment of the body to the frame. Lots of thick stamped steel components around here. Additionally, you can see these massive bolts that are holding on the tow hitch. This vehicle came equipped with a factory towing package, and that, as we understand it, is this bracket wiring throughout the vehicle. That makes available to you the 4-pin and 7-pin solution. No trailer brake controller, but you do get the structural bits and the electronic bits. I also noticed in the menu that there is a anti-sway or a trailer sway control, which is just an option. You can just turn it on. I don't know how involved that is and what vehicles that is or isn't available on, but I know it is available on mine with the tow package. This is a 2.3 liter Badlands with a 7-speed manual. So moving back forward again, here's the drive shaft. You can see that it's a pretty extreme angle, but this is of course at full droop because I've got it up on the lift. Never mind the transmission jack. I'm not pushing up on it at all, just making contact, just to keep things stable and safe for me to be underneath it. That's mostly it, but it's pretty cool. This is the fuel tank here, of course. Crazy solid big mounts for the exhaust system. They're all look to be pretty modular. You could play around with that a lot. These bolts are interesting. Transfer case or transmission mount, long shaft on them, but it's only threaded up by the nut, which is interesting. You're not going to find that at a hardware store. Let's see. Oh, let me take this back before I forget it. Let's follow it back forward. Big boxed in section here. Another rubber bushing support from frame to body. Oh, another thing that's probably people are interested in. Here are the mounts for the rock rails, the factory rock rails. Notice they've got these small bolts that attach them to the pinch weld, and bigger bolts and real thick brackets that attach them deeper onto the unibody. But they're not attached to the box frame directly. So lots of big structural plates, but never all the way to the frame. So they're definitely strong. Can it support the whole vehicle? Not sure, to be discovered. But I'll show you again on the fuel tank side, on passenger side. Pretty large bracket, even bigger in the rear section, secondary bracket here, but all to the stamped steel body construction and not to the box frame. But there is an aftermarket winch setup that goes here, but it requires you to cut off these supports, which is interesting. So these are what hold on the front bash plate right here and right here, and they're some of the thinner stuff here, which I think is meant to deflect and fail before you start bending up the frame, if you really try to rest the whole vehicle on the bash plate there. I guess that's meant to be a bit sacrificial. But everything looks pretty well protected. I'm excited to see what this will do off-road. I'll definitely post an update what this looks like underneath after I've drug it along a bunch of stuff, and so we can get some real-world tests of is all this armor placed in the appropriate places, what might need a little more protection for the kind of abuse that I plan to put it through. So there you go. And here we go with the bash plate back installed. So it's just 4 bolts for each, and 2 are actually shared. So you got a bolt here. These go straight into holes, but there's slots here. So if you hang these 2 bolts started, you can see you could pretty easily slide the plates in there, pivot them up, get those 2 screws. So the same way it works back here. Slide it in there first, and then these 2 bolts just need to be run down. They were torqued pretty similarly. I don't know the exact torque spec. You should go back and look it up. It does look like the front ones at least had some Loctite on them. So I might see those wiggle loose now that I've removed them and put them back without Loctite. But I'll just keep an eye on it. It shouldn't be too hard to manage. But you can see all that stuff we just saw is nice and protected now under these plates. So hopefully it stays a little clean, but more so that all that stuff stays protected from whatever I encounter out on the trail. The only modification I've really made to the vehicle, other than the patches you saw, is I went on Amazon and I got these shackles. I thought that was kind of fun. They don't match as well as I was hoping, but you know, if I really hate them, I'll switch to a contrast color so that it doesn't clash. But these shackles came with a couple of different sized rubber inserts here, so they don't move. They're not going to rattle around and clang and tear up their finish. That would potentially cause them to expose metal and potentially rust. Actually, I'm not sure what material they are, if they're capable of rusting or not, but I thought that was a pretty decent solution. You know, I'm new to this off-roading world. I might find that this was the wrong part to purchase, but I do have a recovery strap that I got, and I was hoping that you know, I'd have a good soft loop to be able to attach it to. I also got a soft shackle. I'm new to this stuff. I'm learning about it. I got this soft shackle here. It's a rugged ridge, and you're going to get abrasion where if you try to put this in somewhere that's sharp, but something like a shackle itself would not be sharp. I don't know if you would ever need to run a soft shackle into a metal shackle like that, but it would be okay to do that. Certainly you use a soft shackle between two recovery straps if you needed to extend them. But I was thinking mainly if I just needed something that wouldn't fit through the small opening here, I could attach them to that rear ring. Again, I'm new to this stuff. There's a lot to learn. I'm really excited to learn about off-roading and about the gear that you need and how it's used. Hopefully I'll do some reviews and things like that and bring those back to you. But I'll just try to do my best to give you that perspective of a new off-roader with my brand new Bronco. And I will be coming back and talking about towing, because that's going to be a big part of the equation for me. I do plan to tow the race car behind the Bronco next year. We're going to cover a lot of miles. I might blow through my entire warranty next year, but it'll be really exciting. I've got a drop hitch coming in hopefully soon. It was supposed to be here, you know, in the next couple of days, but I know there's some delays in shipping, so I'm not sure what to expect yet, but I will give you more about that. I really appreciate you listening, and there'll be more on this channel about the race car and more about the Bronco, so please stay tuned, and thank you for watching.